الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خاتم الأنبياء أشرف المرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Alhamdulillah, we look at this beautiful crowd. Alhamdulillah, the masjid is packed. We see all these youth. Alhamdulillah. And wallahi, it inspires me. You know, coming from America and not knowing where Perth was on a map until I got here. You know, I didn't realize, alhamdulillah, we have such a beautiful community. The subject that we have, and I'm going to jump right into it. I don't want to waste time with formalities, is you versus your environment. And if we look at the Quran, and if we look at the Sunnah of Al-Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam, and we look at the juhud of the ulama of Islam, we find that you have to make your environment. You don't sit around making excuses. And we take it back to the Anbiya. We look at Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Imagine, because we live in an environment where many times things are against us. You know, the fitna is around us. Islamophobia is around us. The LGBTQXYZ, X whatever, LGTV is against us, right? They're pushing these agendas down people's throats. You know, people are always constantly get like, you know, atheists and Christian apologists always making up lies and all kinds of things. And sometimes we think, okay, how are we going to deal with this environment and the social pressures, and how am I going to not be ashamed of being a Muslim? How am I going to pray in public? How am I going to walk around with hijab and khimar and abaya and niqab in an environment where people think I'm oppressed? And how am I going to grow a beard and make salah when people think I'm extreme? And all these shubuhat and doubts that these waswas of shaitan that we get, the answer to that is go back to the kitab of Allah. Tadabburan, like contemplate. Look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in the Quran. Go back to the seerah of Al-Mustafa alayhi salatu salam. Look at the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Look at the lessons. Don't just read there like, oh, take the lesson from it. And look at the juhud, the effort that the ulama of Islam, they put forth for this deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm going to mention these three. The first I'm going to mention is from the Anbiya of the past, which is Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Imagine you are born in a place that your whole people, the Muslims of that time, Bin Israel, the Muslims of that time are enslaved. Meaning the people of Fir'aun, they owned Bin Israel. And they would commit horrible acts. I'm not going to be explicit, but you can read between the lines, that would violate the rights of the women, that would go to the point that they could walk into your house and make unalive your children in front of you, and you wouldn't say anything. Like, subhanAllah, like sometimes we think, oh, it's too hard, and oh, we're going through such a hard time. No, this ummah has been through much worse. That was the ummah of Islam of that time. Today, I have my son Yusuf with me, and I'll tell you, if somebody comes into my house and wants to touch even a hair on the head of any of my children, wallah, I'm not letting them. I don't care who they are. We got Second Amendment in America, you know, we're not letting them. I don't care what happens, right? But Bin Israel was that much under khawf. They were that fearful of Fir'aun and his power and his military and his might and his government, that he could come into your house and take your firstborn child that was born in that year and you wouldn't say anything. Imagine that. And in that environment, as we know, I mean, I'm not going to get into details. You have Sheikh Idris here. I'm sure he's taught you so much already about this. May Allah bless him and protect him and bless your environment. They would, every year they would alternate. One year they would let the children live so they can have slave labor. And the next year they would kill based on when they predicted that Musa a.s. was being born. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have made Musa alayhi salam be born at a time that they weren't doing it, but Allah ordained it that he was born in the year that they would, to show the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The mother of Musa alayhi salam, she has to now protect this child. She could have taken him and put him in the wilderness. She could have taken him and smuggled him out of Egypt. But Allah ordained it that she would throw him in the river, which would lead him straight to the house of Fir'aun. Look at the lesson here, that the enemy of Allah of the time, Fir'aun, zalim, oppressor, murderer, the horrible, the crimes that he committed. People go nowadays, Muslims, they go in the pyramids, take pictures. That's Fir'aun, Dhulm. Those pyramids were built at the blood and sacrifice of the Muslims of that time. What are you proud of? We are from the land of Fir'aun. What? Be from the land of Musa alayhi salam. Don't be proud of Taghut and Tullam and oppressors. Fir'aun, he was that strong, he had that power, that fear. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it that Musa alayhi salam was raised in the house of Fir'aun. Under his nose, under his supervision, Allah ordered that the Nabi of Allah be raised. And then when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him wahi, when he was given the order to give da'wah, you know the story, he wasn't told, okay, run away, go hide somewhere. No, idhab ila Fir'aun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran tells him, no, go back to that Fir'aun and give him da'wah by yourself. So that's what I'm saying. You need to build your environment. Don't worry about what's going on outside. Make your environment. You have a masjid, you have brothers, you have sisters, you have shuyukh. Build this beautiful environment that you don't worry about what the media is saying, and you don't worry about what TV is saying, and you don't care about peer pressure, and you don't care where the world is going and what colors they're wearing and all of that nonsense. You worry about your akhirah. You build your dunya to be based to make your akhirah. Musa alayhi salam, he went to Fir'aun, he faced Fir'aun. Fir'aun with all his tries couldn't harm him. With all his magicians and his armies and his militaries, he couldn't harm him. Musa alayhi salam, he didn't sell out the religion. He didn't say, brothers, we live in a time that we have to compromise, and we have to become like them, and we have to dress like them, and we have to act like them, and let's pretend to be like the people of Fir'aun so we can influence the political powers of Fir'aun, and let's hide the fact that, no! He told them, you are a taghiyah. Make tawbah, turn back to Allah, straight. Who became victorious? Fir'aun? Who? Musa alayhi salam. Till today, who do we name our children after? Fir'aun? You ever met anybody named Fir'aun? Musa alayhi salam. Who will have the akhirah? Who will be in the high levels of Jannah? Fir'aun? No, Musa alayhi salam. Then we see to the time of Rasulullah Mustafa alayhi salatu wasalam. In the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the dunya was on shirk. There were a handful of people, and we discussed this in the Sirah Durus, that were still on Tawheed, individuals. But on a mass level, the Yahud had sold out their religion. They would have all kinds of shirk and things, and you can read about what they were doing. The Nasara, the Christians, were worshipping Jesus. They were making shirk. The Arab, they were mushrikeen. They were worshipping idols. The Ajam, the non-Arabs, were all mushrikeen. The Persians were worshipping fire. The Romans were worshipping Jesus. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in those dhulumat, in that darkness, of shirk, He ordered one man, a human being, Muhammad ibn Abdullah alayhi salatu wasalam, Ya ayyuhal mudaththir, qum fa'andir, wa rabbuka fakabbir. Oh, you that you're wrapped up, get up, stand up, and go and warn all of mankind and speak about the greatness of your Lord. Imagine one man against the world. No army, no political parties, no financial backing, no lobbies, no political clout. The environment is such filth. Like you talk about environments, the environment of Mecca at that time was so bad that a woman would have multiple partners and then she would just choose one. You're the daddy. You know, like they have those shows, you are the father. But there was no DNA test. You're rich, you're the one. They would have dhulm, oppression. Imagine an environment where they would bury their own daughters. An environment where if you didn't have tribal support, your blood meant nothing. No police, no court, no judges, no king, no government. Chaos. And in that darkness, the nur of Tawheed, the nur of Islam, it was put up as the responsibility of one man. One man, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he goes out and he begins his da'wah against all odds. And every side attacks him. The Yahud, we know Banu Qaynuqa, Banu Nadir, we know the tricks they played. The Romans, the Christians, and the threats that they put before Tabuk and after, the Persians and their attacks, the Arab tribes in Khandaq, from every side they attacked. Who did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make victorious? Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Today, there is not a city in the world you don't hear, whether in the masjid or outside the adhan. There is not a place. I've been all over the world in many places that I would never imagine that are Muslims. Alhamdulillah, you will find masajid, you will find Muslims. Today, the fastest growing religion in the world, even with all the propaganda, with all of that, is Islam. Today we see, whether on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala giving nusra to this haqq, to this deen, upon the tongues of the du'at. You see influencers and sports stars and people who you would think would just be lost in this dunya that they could be enjoying, entering the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, making salah and going for hajj and umrah and so on. Why? Because this is the deen of haqq and it will spread. And when I talk about Musa alayhi salam, when I talk about Sayyidina Nabiyyina Muhammad alayhi salatu salam, maybe you will think to yourself, well, okay, those were anbiya, those were prophets. They were chosen by Allah as prophets. I'm not a prophet. What about me? And that's why I will mention a third example. A man who was not a Nabi, who was not a prophet. He was not a Sahabi. A man named Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Hanbal, famously known as Ahmad ibn Hanbal. He was one man, a scholar, at a time where a fitna engulfed the ummah. The fitna of the Mu'tazila, the fitna of Khalq al-Quran, where they started to change the aqeedah of Islam. And they started to say the Quran is makhluq. And they wanted to put their aql ala al-naql. They wanted to put their own deduction over obedience to the Quran and Sunnah. So they brought a fitna where they would try to dispute that the Quran is the words of Allah, meaning being perfect. And we see these fitan today from progressives and liberals and those people that want to change our religion, they want to always make everything up for, khilaf, and everything up for discussion, and they made Islam into like a buffet platter. Like, I'll take this, but I'm good on that. I'll take this, and I don't want that. No, that's not the way Islam works. Islam is aslama. I submit to what Allah has ordered. It's Islam, not Hislam. It's not his opinion that he's going to make what Islam wants to be. No, it's Islam, aslama. I submit. قال Allah, خلاص. قال Rasul, alayhi salatu wasalam. That's it. We follow it. So Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, he's not a Nabi. He doesn't have wahi. But he stands firm. And at that time, the ulama of Islam, the great scholars, they split into 3 categories. Some of them, they left. They left Baghdad, they left that area, they made hijrah to Misr, for example, Shafi'i and other A'imma and ulama. They were on the right aqidah, they were on the right manhaj, but they realized that this is going to be such a tribulation, they left. And some of them, they sold out. When that pressure of the sword comes to the neck, when that pressure of money and the fear of jail and the fear of the whip is put, it cracks people. Some of them sold out. And some of them, they didn't sell out themselves, but they said what they had to say to survive. Even if their own aqidah wasn't that, but they said whatever the Khalifa told them to say, because they didn't want to be put in that hardship. Only 2 men stood firm. Muhammad ibn Nuh and Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And they were in prison. The way of the haqq, nobody told you it's going to be easy. You think Jannah is cheap? Wallahi no. It's ghaliya. It's expensive. A lot of times when we're doing da'wah, we get this question of the problem of evil or the problem of suffering. And people come, if there is a God, why is there suffering on earth? What? Who told you the earth's going to be all roses and ice cream and enjoyment? Where did you get that guarantee from? No, the earth, this dunya, this life of this dunya is a struggle. This is a fitna, this is a trial, this is a tribulation, this is a test, which has no value in the sight of Allah. This life has no value in the sight of Allah. As the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam told us that if the worth of this dunya in the sight of Allah was like the wing of a mosquito even, then Allah would not have given the kuffar a sip of water to drink. But it has no value. That's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about dhahab and fidda. When you take the masail of eating in dishes of gold and silver, why it's haram, he said, lahum fid dunya wa lakum fil akhirah. Let the kuffar have it in this dunya. But for you, it will be in the akhirah, in the hereafter, where it's everlasting. Some of these guys that we see, influencers and things like this, that you guys see on TikTok or Instagram, or you see them on Twitter. I've gotten to know some of them, giving them da'wah. Alhamdulillah, some of them are Muslim today, alhamdulillah. And some of them, they are Muslim and they haven't announced it yet. Inshallah, you will see them announcing when they're ready to. We're not pushing them. And some of them are not Muslim, but we still give them da'wah. And I didn't know them before, but now that I know them, sometimes you meet them and you find out about them and you'll be shocked at how fake their lives are. Sometimes you see these guys with Lamborghinis and Ferraris and you're like, wow, look at that guy. He's 19 and he's got a Lambo and he's got this big pad and I'm sitting here doing nothing. I wish I could be like him. But what you don't know is that he rented that Lambo for a few hours. He rented the Lambo, took pictures, tweeted it, put it on Instagram, put it on TikTok Live, drove it around, then gave the key back. Thank you. Where's my Accord so I can go home?